He led Q1 like a champion reborn. He finished Q3 angry, silent, and 6/10 off the pole. But what Lewis Hamilton found inside his Ferrari after Singapore qualifying shocked the paddock. This isn't just a story about speed. It's a story about trust, temperature, and the car that betrayed him. Every Formula One driver talks about focus, but few embody it like Lewis Hamilton. To watch him prepare for a qualifying session is to watch control distilled into ritual. He doesn't pace, doesn't fidget, doesn't force intensity, he builds it. Before Singapore, Hamilton spent hours with his engineers in silent concentration, examining telemetry down to the smallest data pulse. His mind doesn't chase lap times, it hunts patterns. "Find me consistency," he told Riccardo Adami during the Thursday debrief, voice calm but deliberate. That's Hamilton in his purest form, a man searching not for speed, but for symmetry. Singapore, with its 90-degree corners and relentless rhythm, is a circuit that rewards exactly that mindset. The plan was simple: balance risk and patience, build a lap layer by layer, and deliver the kind of clinical perfection that has defined his greatest Saturdays. Inside the Ferrari garage, however, simplicity rarely survives. The team was split over philosophy. One group pushed for a lower downforce setup, betting on top speed to defend track position during the race. The other, Hamilton's side, insisted on stability. Singapore isn't a track for chaos, and Lewis knows that better than anyone. He's won here through rhythm, not recklessness. "We can't fight this circuit," he said. "We have to respect it." It was a statement that carried both wisdom and quiet defiance. Ferrari's engineering leadership, eager to chase numbers, reluctantly agreed to his plan. They installed the high downforce rear wing, tightened the suspension geometry, and softened front damping to help traction. On paper, the changes made sense. In theory, they would slow him on straights, but by precious stability through Marina Bay's brutal low-speed corners. In reality, they built a trap. Hamilton's first laps in practice reflected that uneasy compromise. The SF-25 felt balanced, but strangely detached. Through turns 5 and 7, his steering inputs were lighter than usual, almost tentative. "The front's sharp," he radioed, "but the rear's lazy." That sentence revealed everything. The Ferrari's balance wasn't unified. Its aerodynamics and mechanical grip were working in different languages. Yet Hamilton adapted instantly. He adjusted brake bias forward, changed differential preload, and found rhythm where most drivers would have drowned in frustration. "He's compensating faster than we can analyze," one engineer remarked in disbelief. That's Hamilton's secret. He doesn't need the perfect car. He needs to understand its imperfection. By Friday evening, the garage buzzed with quiet hope. The car wasn't easy, but was fast enough. For a team learning to trust a 7-time world champion, that was progress. Temporary, fragile progress. The deeper issue was hidden in the data that night. Ferrari's thermal models, which predict how heat flows through the car during long runs, showed a small irregularity in Hamilton's configuration. The cooling pattern near the rear suspension arms was slightly off, just a few degrees higher than expected. The simulation team flagged it as minor, noting that the airflow may be partially restricted at low speed. No alarms were raised. But in Singapore, where 90% of the lap occurs below 200 kilometers per hour, low speed isn't a condition. It's the environment. The anomaly that seemed irrelevant on Friday would become the very crack that split Ferrari's illusion of control. Hamilton never saw those numbers. He doesn't need to. His instincts told him enough. "It's speaking to me weird," he said over the radio during FP2. He laughed when he said it, but his intuition wasn't joking. By Saturday, that unease had grown. Hamilton walked into the paddock wearing that expression he gets before something significant: calm face, quiet energy, but eyes sharp enough to read everything around him. The Ferrari engineers could feel it. "He knows," one whispered before qualifying. He didn't know about the airflow anomaly yet, but he knew the behavior of the car wasn't linear. The temperature sensitivity that Ferrari had battled all season, tire warm-up, brake cooling, floor balance, was back. And in Singapore's thick, humid air, instability multiplies. Yet Lewis didn't flinch. "Let's make the best of it," he said before stepping into the cockpit. That sentence isn't optimism, it's discipline. He's been through machinery worse than this. Cars that broke his trust, strategies that broke his patience. Singapore wasn't about proving speed. It was about proving control under imperfection. The irony is that Hamilton had done everything right. His preparation was flawless, his focus unwavering, his decisions precise. The failure that awaited him was invisible, buried deep within the car's design, hidden under layers of carbon and calculation. That's the cruel poetry of Formula One, perfection undone by decimals. When he left the garage for Q1, visor down, radio quiet, the team believed they were watching redemption in motion. The man, the car, the circuit, finally in alignment. And for 20 minutes, that illusion held. He topped Q1, the Ferrari danced under the lights, and the paddock held its breath. But under the floor, the airflow restriction worsened, the cooling channels began to heat, and the physics started writing their own story. The calm before the storm had lasted just long enough for everyone to believe in it, including him. What destroyed Hamilton's qualifying wasn't visible. It wasn't a crash, a mistake, or even strategy. It was science, the silent kind that punishes belief. Deep within the SF-25's rear bodywork, Ferrari's aerodynamic update had created a hidden contradiction. The new rear wing assembly, designed to improve downforce at low speed, generated turbulent airflow around the cooling exits near the suspension arms. In simulations, the airflow separation looked manageable. But in Singapore's thick, humid air, turbulence behaves differently. It lingers. Instead of cooling the system, it trapped heat inside the structure. By Q2, that trapped heat began feeding back into the suspension geometry, distorting load distribution and tire temperature balance. No one noticed in real time. On telemetry, the car still looked alive. But to Hamilton, it felt like something fundamental was shifting, an imbalance that no amount of driving genius could tame. Ferrari's engineering division had known the risk. Their design team had warned weeks earlier that the new high-load concept required perfect temperature equilibrium to function properly. "It's a precise car," said Enrico Cardiel, Ferrari's technical director, during development. "If you lose temperature control, you lose consistency." And in Formula One, consistency is everything. Hamilton's driving style, smooth inputs, progressive load, minimal steering correction, depends entirely on a stable aerodynamic platform. The SF-25's imbalance turned that platform into a moving target. At first, it was subtle. The car rotated too quickly at entry, then understeered at mid-corner. But as the laps went on, the degradation multiplied. Every correction forced the tires to work harder. Every slide built heat where none should exist. It wasn't a driving flaw, it was a feedback loop. The harder Hamilton tried to stabilize the car, the more unstable it became. The real trap was that it worked at first. During Q1, Hamilton's Ferrari looked perfect, poised, balanced, fast. He topped the session by extracting the maximum from the car before the system overheated. That initial success gave Ferrari false confidence. They believed the issue had been solved, or worse, imagined. "Temperatures are fine," one engineer said through the intercom after Q1. But the data they were reading was surface level. Beneath the carbon, the suspension arms were already climbing past 90 degrees Celsius, disrupting the rear geometry by fractions of a millimeter. Tiny, imperceptible shifts, enough to change the car's grip behavior completely. By the time Q2 began, the car that Hamilton had mastered 20 minutes earlier was gone. He hadn't changed. The car had. And that's the cruelest thing that can happen to a Formula One driver, to lose control of something he once understood perfectly. As the session went on, Hamilton began describing sensations that didn't match any known pattern. "Rear feels light under load," he said. "Then it bites too late." Adami's voice came through the radio, calm but uncertain. "Copy, Lewis, balance looks stable." But telemetry can lie when it doesn't know where to look. The heat was distorting readings across the car's sensors, creating the illusion of balance while the structure itself was shifting. Hamilton could feel it in his fingertips, a slight delay between steering input and response, a disconnect that numbers couldn't quantify. The SF-25 was becoming two cars in one, stable at low speed, unpredictable under load. "It's floating," he repeated, his tone no longer questioning. He wasn't asking for an explanation. He was stating the truth. The Ferrari that had felt alive on Friday was now speaking in riddles. Inside the garage, Ferrari's engineers began arguing in whispers. Some believe it was a setup problem, that Hamilton's high downforce configuration was trapping too much heat under braking. Others pointed to tire prep, insisting that waiting too long in the pit lane had allowed surface temperatures to drop. Both theories were right, and both were wrong. The real answer was hidden in the design, a structural compromise disguised as progress. "It's the update," one mechanic muttered under his breath. "The airflow's choking itself." But no one dared to escalate at mid-session. You don't pull apart a car when it's fighting for the front row. So they stayed quiet, praying that data would prove them wrong. It didn't. Hamilton's lap times began to fade, tenth by tenth, corner by corner, until he was no longer competing for pole, just holding on to coherence. And yet, through all of it, Hamilton never broke. He kept the rhythm, kept the precision, even when the car refused to obey. That's what separates him. Where others overdrive chaos, he dances with it, smooth, contained, unflinching. He's managing it, said one astonished engineer. He's keeping the car alive. But even he couldn't outdrive thermodynamics. When the checkered flag fell on Q3, he finished sixth, half a second slower than his own Q1 benchmark. The difference wasn't human. It was mechanical. Afterward, Hamilton didn't complain. He just asked a single question in the debrief. Why did it feel like the car changed underneath me? Hours later, when Ferrari found the truth, the airflow blockage, the overheating linkage, the thermal miscalculation, the silence said it all. It hadn't been imagination. It had been inevitability disguised as potential. Ferrari's problems in Singapore didn't end with the car, they deepened with procedure. Qualifying at Marina Bay is all about timing. The track evolves minute by minute, each lap faster as rubber grips the tarmac. But Ferrari misread that rhythm entirely. They sent Hamilton out too early, then held him too long in the pit lane, trapped behind a wall of traffic. In that short pause, 60 seconds of idling, the soft tires cooled by nearly 6 degrees. For any car, that's inconvenient. For the SF-25, it was fatal. The Ferrari's fragile thermal window meant those 6 degrees destroyed the front-to-rear balance before the lap even began. When Hamilton rolled onto the outlap, the car felt alien. "We've lost temperature," he warned. Adami confirmed softly, "Copy, tires will come back." But they didn't. They never do in Singapore. Once cold, they stay cold. What makes the mistake harder to forgive is that Hamilton had warned them. During the Q2 briefing, he'd asked to go out last, to time his flying lap with maximum track evolution and minimal traffic. It was the logical move, and Hamilton's trademark precision demanded it. But Ferrari, paranoid about possible yellow flags, ignored the request. "We need margin," they told him. The irony is brutal. In seeking safety, they built disaster. Every other front-running team, Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, released their drivers later, targeting the final 2 minutes of Q3. Ferrari, by contrast, sent Hamilton out early, forcing him into a slow-moving queue of cars on cool-down laps. It wasn't just poor timing, it was the exact scenario he'd predicted. "We're sitting here losing heat," he said over the radio, voice level but edged with disbelief. You could hear it, that quiet irritation that says underscore, "I told you so underscore." The moment he left the pit lane, the tires began to die. The first sector was manageable, grip light, but predictable. Then came turn 5, where the SF-25's front end simply refused to bite. Hamilton turned in, the car hesitated, understeered toward the outer wall, and the lap was gone. From there, the rest was damage control. Through turns 7 and 13, he fought for traction, but the car snapped unpredictably on exit. "Rear's sliding already," he said, voice calm but tight. Ferrari's engineers watched the telemetry helplessly. Every corner showed the same story. Tires out of window, aero platform unstable, balance gone. It wasn't a bad lap. It was a lap built on impossible conditions. When he crossed the line, 6th fastest, there was no shouting, no anger, no drama. Just a long exhale. "We'll talk later," he said, for words that meant far more than they sounded. Inside the garage, silence filled the space where optimism used to live. The engineers reviewed the timing screens, watching rivals celebrate. George Russell on pole, Oscar Piastri second, Charles Leclerc third. The other Ferrari had made the front row fight. Hamilton's car had not. That contrast burned. Both cars had the same chassis, the same power unit, the same upgrades. The difference wasn't luck, it was timing. Leclerc had gone out later in cleaner air with warmer tires. Hamilton's session was sacrificed by a call made 60 seconds too early. The worst part, Ferrari knew it instantly. The strategy chief muttered under his breath, "We released too soon." No one responded. In a team as political as Ferrari, mistakes are rarely admitted aloud. But this one didn't need to be. The numbers were clear. Hamilton had been set up to fail by procedure, not by pace. When he stepped out of the car, the cameras swarmed, searching for reaction. Hamilton removed his gloves slowly, unhurried, expression unreadable. To the public, that calm looked like acceptance. Inside it was control, deliberate, sharpened, absolute. He walked past the journalists, past the cameras, and straight into the Ferrari engineering office. No raised voice, no confrontation, just presence. "What happened?" he asked. They explained the delay, the traffic, the thermal drop. He listened silently, nodded once, and said, "We can't make the same mistake twice." It wasn't a demand. It was a statement of leadership. He didn't blame. He corrected. That's the Hamilton way. Anger is useless unless it builds something. The room stayed quiet for several seconds after he left, the kind of silence that lingers when everyone realizes the cost of a single procedural error. Outside, the media tried to frame the story as a technical failure. But inside Ferrari, they knew better. It was cultural. The same old disease, overthinking. Too many voices in the room, not enough conviction. Hamilton's side of the garage had executed cleanly all weekend until that final call. Then indecision crept in, and indecision always kills performance. The scandal wasn't mechanical. It was human. They had a 7-time world champion in the car, a man who lives on precision, and they denied him the one thing he demands above all, timing. "He told them," said a team source later that night. "He warned them about the window, about the cue. They just didn't listen." Formula One's cruelest truth is that brilliance can't fix bureaucracy. And in that moment, Ferrari's old habits proved stronger than Hamilton's